50 Cent knocks out Jim Jones after he shows up at his studio. In regard to the landlord of this property, we've seen a lot of Cent heading toward Jim Jones experiencing some problems. Jim Jones's and Cent's feud has recently escalated. Release footage of Jones breaking into his own studio and exposed him for unpaid rent in response to Jones's criticism of the documentary. Now, when Jones arrived in the studio, things became physical. Let's dissect it. The lockout. What really took place? When Jim Jones arrived at his Bronx studio on February 1st, the place was silent. The locks have been changed, the lights are off, and the key is worthless. Thus, he took the necessary action. He opened the door with a kick. Cent posted the video to Instagram for the entire world to enjoy hours later that same evening. I want you all to pay attention to the date of the video that he shared. Narrow hallway, extremely clear security camera. On the audio, you hear someone state that the lights were turned out. Jim Jones then enters the frame, approaches a locked studio door, and begins using his foot to work on it. Jim, did you hear? Because he finds it offensive that you are discussing the lights. Jim, you're not supposed to hear. You know? He turned out the lights. The first door remained stationary. Jones continued to swing. He went to the second door, kicked it off its hinges, and entered with 2 men following him. The door has been kicked off its hinges by Jim. I agree with you, Jim. What is he saying? You're not going to miss any leg days. It was simply impossible to get through this door. The entire first one lasted less than a minute. The video had already gone viral twice by the time the morning crowd logged on. Cent released the video a few hours after it was shot. Additionally, he uploaded the papers in addition to the video, a picture of the real lease termination notice, a court document written to IFC Management LLC, Joseph Jones, Jim Jones's official name, and 2 expired default notices. There is no room for flexibility. Now, FIT also posts the company's claim that they did post a notice of Jim Jones' eviction. In fact, this is stated in the eviction notice. It is addressed to Joseph Jones from IFC Management LLC. A 10-day notice of default, dated January 1st and expiring January 11th, was displayed in the documentation. A 1-day termination notice was dropped on February 2nd, with an expiration date of February 2nd, after it failed to elicit a response. 2 days beyond that deadline, on February 2nd, Jones and his crew arrived to discover dead electricity and barred doors. A 30-day notice of default, dated January 1st, was delivered to the renter. It expired on January 31st. All is well. A 2-day notice of termination that was sent on February 30th and terminated on the same day. The tenant's lease has been terminated. The structure was known as the Intellectual Factory of Content, or IFC Factory. Jones had signed the lease back in December, promising to turn the area into a fully functional complex. Bodega, barbershop, gym, and soundstage. The idea was to use it as a content center for the Let's Rap About It podcast, which he co-hosts with Dave East, Fabulous, and Mino. He was attempting to kick his way back inside the hallway 2 months after signing. Jim. Jimmy. Jim. What is this? Jim. Oh no. Hey, the memes about Jim's absence on leg day. When he dropped the security footage, Sense captioned it. Oh no, dude. If we were friends, this wouldn't occur. Do you want to be friends? I'm not sure. Let's rap about it. Funny. You can learn everything there is to know about Sense mindset from that caption. There was no rage, no threats, just a man grinning at the TV while seeing the mayhem he had caused. This hit was unique since the video showed more than simply a man who was trapped out of a building. It destroyed the entire public narrative that Jones had been crafting. There was more to the IFC plant than just a lease. Jones had been posting pictures of the construction and discussing the gym, barbershop, and bodega on Instagram. He was pitching an idea. He had a building and was the boss. On camera, the same building was now dark, and he was kicking doors in the corridor like a deadbeat uncle trying to get back into the crib after the landlord had had enough. Cent recorded all of that. He realized that sharing the video meant more than just making fun of Jones for being locked out. It was destroying the entire image Jones had associated with that area. Every construction update, drill video, and post Jones made about the IFC factory, including "I'm building something for the culture," became a joke. He was now unable to even enter the building that he was meant to represent. However, the lockout wasn't the first move. It was the last one. You have to go back to a podcast session from December in which 4 adult men chose to talk slick about a Netflix documentary in order to comprehend how Jim Jones ended up kicking doors in the dark. How it began. The criticism of the podcast that set everything off. The Let's Rap About It crew was ranting about the Netflix documentary series Sense in the IFC Factory in December. It was referred to as a mockumentary. The tone was clowned around. They have concerns about the production. They pretended that Scent had released something embarrassing. It appeared to be standard podcast static from the outside. For strong-willed men discussing an idea, this is the type of commentary that pops online once a week and vanishes by Friday. However, this wasn't just any project. That documentary series was executive produced by Scent. These guys chose to sit in the building despite the fact that it was his work with his name on it. The cost of renting and roasting it on camera was almost unaffordable. Scent didn't argue over the phone. He didn't let go of a freestyle. He started excavating. He posted audio from a phone conversation he had with Sam, the building's landlord, on Instagram. Sam was heard venting on the recording over unpaid rent associated with the podcast's lease at the IFC factory. Scent called the entire team squatters in the caption, alerting everyone to the fact that these men were not paying their bills. Thus, you kind of gave them a poke. When you say, "Y'all owe $1 million in rent," you can see that their tone shifts as they attempt to downplay it. Scent was tossing around some really big amounts. Some follow-up posts pushed the total amount to somewhere around $1 for the entire studio space, citing arrears ranging from $1 to $1 on the previous lease agreements. Furthermore, he began to allude to a deal. Stated that he was considering purchasing the entire building and acquiring a portion of the Let's Rap About It podcast in the process. The man even offered me a portion of their podcast when I returned and said, "Yo, I got them to pay that money to the man." In what appeared to be a moment of surrender, the crew attempted to play it off, claiming that everything was straight and that the numbers were cap. Jim Jones sent money to cover the cost, according to Scent's post. So Jim wired the K over. "'Kay, cool. He might end up being a good tenant after all. Samuel, if you need me to make them pay, just give me a ring. I'm here," he said in his caption. I'm impressed by Scent's claim that Jim Jones sent in money after accusing the podcast crew of being squatters and owing money in back rent. However, even after paying the landlord, Scent persisted. He posted footage of the studio blacking out in the middle of a recording, with the entire crew on camera, phones out and flashlights on, trying to figure out why the lights suddenly died. He then has the song Turn Off the Lights and says, "LOL Cam, turn the lights off on that bum in there with flashlights." It wasn't a coincidence. Scent was demonstrating to the world that he was involved in the building's operations and that the podcast lifeline ran through people who were now on his side. The power outage footage was more impactful than the rent audio because it could not be refuted by numbers. When the landlord leaks surfaced, Jones and the crew could argue that the figures were inflated and dispute the totals. However, no one could argue with a video of 4 podcast hosts stumbling around in complete darkness, using their iPhone flashlights to see each other's faces. A podcast lives and dies on consistency. The audience expects a new episode in the same way that they expect their favorite show to drop on schedule. When the silence continued into week 2 and then week 3, the audience did not need Scent to explain what was happening. They could see it. The crew that had been making the most noise on the internet was unable to even release an episode. 3 weeks passed with no content, no updates, and dead silence from a crew that was supposed to be building momentum. That 3-week blackout was the tell. The question underneath all of this is, how did Scent even get here? How does a man with no connection to a Bronx commercial lease end up holding this much leverage over what happens inside it? The answer lies in a calculated move that demonstrated exactly the kind of chess Scent has always played. Take away the surveillance footage, the eviction notices, and the landlord audio. Scent's pressure had shut down the operation without a single direct confrontation. Then February 1st arrived, and the termination notice expired. Scent and Cameron were embroiled in a real New York rap war that year, which began when Scent went on Angie Martinez's hot show and called Coke Records, the label that was sheltering Cameron and the rest of Dipset, a graveyard for washed-up artists. Cameron called in hot, diss records was dropped on both sides, and the streets and blogs were watching. In the midst of all that heat, Cent pulled Jim Jones onto BET's Rhapsody as a guest while he told the world that G-Unit was one of the few movements that I do respect. In the second play, Cent brought Jim Jones and Jules Santana out as surprise guests on stage at a live show in New York. Both men performed alongside Gunnett in front of a packed crowd inside the Dipit camp, which was treated as blatant betrayal. Years later, Cameron sat down with Cent on the Talk with Flea YouTube show and explained what that move cost him. He said that Dipit was already collapsing internally, drama that no one outside knew about, so when Jones and Santana hit that stage with the enemy, it wasn't just looking bad, it accelerated everything. Cam called it a checkmate moment and said he had to respect the play's diabolical nature. Fifth is the only person I know who uses straightforward art of war tactics to split Dipsy's set from the inside by drawing important members into Gunnett's orbit while the crew was already cracking. If it takes a years, months, 5 months and years, he still delivers. He doesn't give an academic the cleanest. They are the same player with the same mind, the same patience, and a different weapon, in this case a concert appearance in a BET cosign. This is how dirty plays can tell you are broken. The fact that Jim Jones was the one who sat with Gunnett on BET and performed on stage with the opposition, not Cameron's or Joel's Jones, also reveals that he has always been the weak link in any team he works with. Because of this history, every time Cent needs to put pressure on Jones in public, the receipts are already loaded, and Jones is unable to use loyalty as a defense because the tape shows him choosing the opposing side when the heat was on. Cent is aware of this and uses it throughout his entire career. It spans Cent's entire career, including the times when it appeared as though he was losing. He was facing a $1 million arbitration judgment from Sleek Audio and a $1 million privacy judgment from Lastonia Leon. At the same time, he filed Chapter 11. The blogs referred to it as a fall from grace, but Chapter is a reorganization, not a burial. He locked in a payment plan worth about $1 million spread over 5 years and emerged unscathed. While the case was pending, he was on Instagram with piles of cash, leading people to assume he was trolling the judge. In order to build a film and entertainment complex in Shreveport, Louisiana, he used his own assets to secure $1 million commitment. This move is significant because it reveals Cent's true mental state. While he is out there posting Jim Jones eviction notices, he is not in his feelings about a Bronx podcast. Instead, he is building a 6-figure film infrastructure in Louisiana and expanding a media empire simultaneously. The Jim Jones situation is not his main event. It is a side hustle he runs in between boardroom meetings. And that difference in operating level is precisely what makes the whole situation so unbalanced. Jones is fighting for a studio that he cannot pay rent on, while Cent is literally building studios for a living. This is the man that Jim Jones chose to discuss sideways on a podcast. When Cent moved, he did more than just move on the outside. He reached inside the building and took the keys. The ownership play. How Cent became the landlord. On February 2nd, Cent pulled out his next card one day after dropping the door-kicking surveillance footage on the entire internet. With the caption, "Sam is my partner. I own the joint. Now you're going to fix every door you kick, or I'm going to kick Jimmy. By Monday, you're destroying my property." No deed, no LLC paperwork dropped publicly, and no closing documents circulating, but Cent presented it as already done. As of right away, the door-kicking footage was no longer just an embarrassing viral clip. Jim Jones went from being a locked-out tenant to a man who owes Cent a new door by Monday. The escalation was complete. He posted about your landlord. Yo, it's great. Cent had gone from posting receipts on Instagram to establishing himself as the owner of the physical space where the podcast operated. By his own admission, he was no longer a beef participant making comments from the outside. He was the landlord's partner sitting at the table where decisions about that building were made. So your landlord is bullying you on Cent's behalf. All the tough talk you guys got, y'all aren't pulling up on a landlord. Academics broke it down the way the streets understood it, and his whole goal isn't to make money off of real estate. It's with 4 people under who are on a podcast that, even if they simply moved on, the building was the cage and Cent simply took the key. The evil thing about the ownership announcement is that it shifted the burden of proof to Jim Jones without allowing Jones to take action in real time. Prior to the Sam photo, Jones was involved in a landlord dispute, which is a type of legal dispute between a tenant and a property owner that is resolved in housing court. The second Cent posted the picture and declared, "I own the joint." However, Jim Jones's response was just that. You cannot litigate that on Instagram. You cannot counter a property partnership claim with a kung fu video and a caption about free promo. Jones had to somehow prove that Cent did not have a legitimate stake in the building. Kung Fu Vids. In reference to the movie The Last Dragon, he uploaded films of himself working on a training dummy with the remark, "Kung Fu Jim is what they call him." He claimed that there were no locked doors and that he was attempting to determine what I should advertise when I was once again in the spotlight. Mayo took the factual approach and assumed the role of spokeswoman. He presented the counterargument and hit Angela Ye's way up. It was a multi-year lease. For rent that was held by the LLC, the crew was not personally liable. No court order, marshal, sheriff, or other appropriate legal procedures had ever been followed in the eviction. He claimed that the locks had been illegally changed by the landlord. Police were summoned, and while the team regained entrance, the landlord was eventually ejected by the officers. In order to demonstrate that the studio was still operational, he conducted a walkthrough on camera and declared the entire crisis to be over. The crew's most grounded countermove throughout the run was Mino's walkthrough. He demonstrated that the podcast had not been permanently taken down by appearing on the premises on camera and pointing at the equipment. This is where it failed, though. You can verify that you have access to a building with a studio walkthrough. It doesn't change the picture of your landlord with your adversary grinning. The security footage of your co-host kicking the door in at that time is not erased. On camera, Mino prevailed in the legal dispute. Before he had a chance to speak, he lost the online debate. We do have a commenter, and he continues to make fun of both him and Jim Jones. By the way, we really ought to start with Jim Jones. Cent continued to apply brushstrokes to the public photo even though it had already been painted and sealed. Because he was developing an innovative weapon that would go back into Jim Jones's past and extract a name that carries more weight than any lease paper ever could. All the while the property war was unfolding in real time. The snitching viewpoint and the AI video. Cent's last action. Cent jumped on Max B's song No More Tricks off his public domain mixtape on March 3rd. Changed the title to No More Tricks, No More Tries and added a new verse. The entire podcast crew, including Jim Jones, Mino, Fabulous, and Dave East specifically, is airing out Wax, with Dame Grease handling production and no features. A few days later, on March 3rd, Cent released a whole AI-generated music video for the song, which was created by a lone content creator. These featured animated scenes aimed at all four co-hosts while Max B rode through the streets of New York City. Jim Jones was put in what appeared to be an interrogation room that was timed to coincide with the snitching line. It wasn't a random image. It was a reference to the most persistent charge in Jim Jones's career, which has followed him through 3 different circumstances. During Tekashi's federal racketeering trial in Manhattan in September, the first incident occurred. Ixine testified that Jim Jones belonged to the 9 Trey Bloods. The wiretap conversation between November Jones and an accused 9 Trey leader regarding what should happen to Ixine for disparaging gang members was then played by the prosecution. Jones was not detained or charged. In that instance, the wiretap was used as evidence against the real defendants rather than Jones. However, Cent saved that video and has been using it ever since, portraying Jones's participation as cooperation. The second charge was made in May after footage of Jim Jones getting into a physical brawl at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport surfaced. Jones spoke with the responding cops after it happened and explained what had happened. Wack posted the video to Instagram and called Jones a rat for talking to the police, referred to it as telling or snitching on record. Jones refuted it, claiming that reporting an assault to the police while you are the victim does not constitute snitching, and that neither party filed any charges as a result of the incident. The final set of accusations is related to the long-standing rumors inside the Dipset camp regarding Max B's arrest and subsequent conviction on robbery and murder charges. In interviews, Cameron hinted that Jones was involved in the circumstances surrounding Max B's legal predicament. Although Max B has discussed related subjects while incarcerated, Jim Jones has never been linked to that case in any court documents, official filings, or documented proof. Additionally, Jones has never been charged or questioned about any of it. The problem with the Ixine trial, the airport video, and the Max B stories is this: whether any of them hold up in court is irrelevant. The fact that they are all accessible, searchable, and documented online is what counts. Cent doesn't even need to speak when he wants to remind the society of them. He merely includes Max B in a song video. In an animated disc segment, he places Jones in an interrogation room. He lets the audience fill in all the blanks while the association speaks. Here's Max B in AI video from March Guns, when he trains right next to Jim Jones. It was a precise casting decision. In that video, Max B is more than just a feature. He serves as a reference. He serves as a reminder to everyone watching that Cent has no intention of allowing the snitching accusations associated with Jim Jones to go away. "I am the algorithm," Cent said as the post's caption. Take a seat with that caption. He's not saying that he's the hardest rapper. He is not arguing over flows or bars. He claims to have greater power than a hit song because he controls the flow of information, how stories are constructed, how names are obscured, and who is remembered as the winner on the internet. Hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake for him. Thus, the 1, 2, or 3 are merely meant to make a point and maintain the impression that I'm destroying everyone. I believe you'll succeed. Additionally, the AI movie showcased resources that Jones was completely unable to match. Cent didn't require a set, a production crew, a director, a site scout, or a shoot day. For a fraction of the price of a standard video, he commissioned a fully animated, fully produced disc video that quickly went viral on all hip-hop platforms. Cent was utilizing artificial intelligence to create a cinematic takedown of his entire team, while Jim Jones was posting phone-recorded kung fu videos to clap back. Every frame of that video showed the disparity between the technical, financial, and artistic resources available to each guy. When Jim Jones visited the Cent's Netflix documentary in December, he referred to it as a mockumentary. By March, Cent had partnered with his landlord, broadcast his door-kicking moment to millions of people, posted his government name on eviction paperwork for the internet to screenshot, announced his unpaid rent, and released an AI-assisted visual disc with the one name most likely to make Jones uncomfortable. He didn't even raise his voice, catch a single charge, or exchange a single blow. I appreciate you watching. If you like this video, you can view more similar material by clicking on one of the boxes that are currently playing on your screen.